Well, hello, folks, and welcome to the Dieter Melhorn Fishing Podcast. I hope you're having a good day, whatever day it is that you happen to be listening to the show. If you're a regular listener, I appreciate you coming back by. I know a lot of people watch the podcast. I do a video version. For you folks that are just listening to it right now, there's a video version that I have on my YouTube channel, Dieter Melhorn Fishing. Or if you're watching it, there is an audio podcast, Dieter Melhorn Fishing. It's on all the popular podcast formats out there. So either way, you've got a way that you can listen or you can watch, and I appreciate you checking it out. For all you folks that may be confused on where the heck all this stuff is at, just go to my website, DieterMelhornFishing.com. There's links to the podcast, the YouTube channel, Facebook, my guide service here in the Carolinas where I do guided fishing trips. All the gear I use, people ask about the gear. I've got a gear section up that shows all the gear I use. So a lot of questions are answered on the website, DieterMelhornFishing.com. So anyway, we'll get down to what's going on. This podcast I decided to do was basically to kind of talk about what goes on this time of the year. This podcast is going up in mid-February. And wintertime. It's still winter. We're coming into a little bit of a warm streak here. I've got some guide trips this weekend, and it's going to be kind of nice. We're going to have some highs in the 60s, upper 60s as a matter of fact. Some overnight lows in the 40s, which is nice, considering it's still winter. We're not even close to spring yet. But it's going to turn back cold next week, so we're going to get back to more seasonal temperatures. Now, for us here in the South, we've got it pretty good. I'm not along the coast and we don't get coastal temperatures, but traditionally for us this time of the year, it's highs in the 40s, maybe 50s, lows around freezing into the 20s. So getting a streak like this is kind of nice, but we've had pretty much a normal seasonal temperatures this year. We even had some snow. We've had a couple of accumulating snowfalls, which has been nice. We always love that. The wonderful thing about snow in the South, though, guys, especially you guys in the North, is our snow goes away about 24 hours after it shows up. So you guys don't get that luxury like we do. I know some of your snows, they're there all winter. So our stuff goes away, and our ramps are open all year long. Nothing freezes over down here. So we get to fish. And, it's I bring all this up because there are certain seasonal patterns that start to happen, and depending on where you're at. Obviously, this is going to be different lakes, different rivers. Rivers are going to be totally different than what lakes are this time of the year. But that's kind of the thing I was going to go over on what I'm seeing where I'm fishing. And the places I'm on are reservoirs. We really don't have any major rivers like you guys that are on the Mississippi or Missouri River, Ohio, or anything like that. We've got rivers that these lakes are built on, but they're not a constant flow kind of river like you guys. That's a whole different ball game and the effect there. And I'm not going to speak too much to that because that's kind of out of my wheelhouse on what goes on. But the stuff I'm going to talk about is a little more of the seasonal patterns that we see happen. And a lot of this stuff tends to translate to other lakes and other bodies of water. So a little info for people out there that are kind of new to this game, trying to fish in the wintertime. I've got a lot of people that listen to the podcast and watch it on YouTube that are kind of new to fishing, trying to learn. That's kind of what we're going to talk about. What we're seeing right now is water temperatures in the mid to upper 40s, which honestly isn't that bad. When you start getting into the upper 40s, it is cold, don't get me wrong, but I was filming at the Ice Bowl tournament, which is in Virginia on the North Carolina-Virginia line, Kerr Lake, home to the world record blue catfish. And that was a week or so ago, 2 weeks ago now, and water was cold. It was cold enough that the Ice Bowl earned its name. There was ice on the water. One of the mornings when we came out, I was with Joey Baird out there, and there was ice on the water. We were busting through ice about a 1/4 inch thick. So obviously that's freezing temperatures to get that cold. We saw water temperatures down in the lake anywhere from 38 to up around 45, 46. One of the things that happens there, and this is something that you folks keep in mind depending on where you're fishing, in the wintertime, especially on lakes, not everything, just because it's cold in one place, it's not necessarily going to be that way somewhere else. And what I'm talking about here on Kerr Lake was a good example. Around the boat ramp, which is in the upper reaches of the lake, the boat ramp we went out of, the water was dingier. It was not getting good light penetration. And, therefore, it's not going to heat up as quickly. It'll hold heat, but it's not going to heat up as quickly. The other areas further down the lake, this area where it was, heavily stained, dingy, muddy, is where we were seeing the ice. You get further down the lake, water was much clearer. It wasn't getting the inflow from the rivers, and there was no ice, and it was 6 to 7 degrees warmer. That light penetration is what really helps with keeping that water warmer. And you could tell that, a little bit further downstream. And I say all this because in the wintertime, it's probably more critical than it is in the summertime as far as finding temperature breaks on some of these lakes and even rivers. Rivers are a little bit more difficult because the water's all the time moving and it's churning stuff up, and you get a lot more mix going on. But there are places in rivers, pockets, some of the oxbows and stuff like that, that will have different water temperatures than what you will have on a main river. But speaking to the lakes and reservoirs specifically, those water temperatures will vary. So sometimes it pays to look around. You guys that are bank fishing, well, you're stuck with where you're at. And that's one of the bad things about bank fishing in the wintertime. You may be subjected to ice quicker than anybody because a lot of times you're stuck in some of that shallower water in the back of some of these coves where there's less movement, that kind of thing. And at some of the places I rode around and shot some drone footage and was riding around looking in some of these places. And a lot of these coves and stuff had ice back in them, back in these little pockets and stuff where these boat ramps were. There was a lot more ice. Water was a lot colder there. So for bank fishermen, it can be a lot tougher. The other thing that's tough is, generally speaking, when it's really cold like that, you don't see a lot of fish in the shallower water. Now, there are some exceptions to that. Big exceptions. Just last weekend, there was a big catfish tournament on Santee Cooper, and they were catching a lot of fish in some shallow water. And the water was not remarkably warmer. It was warmer than what it has been 2 weeks ago, but it was not, remarkably warmer. It wasn't like a 10 or 15 degree jump. But some of these fish had pulled in there. Generally speaking, when it's cold, when you start getting to that lower 40 degree water, a lot of times these fish are pulled out of there, and it's mainly because the bait pulls out of there. Now, with that said, that's a general rule. There are some weird things that happen in the winter and in the summer that, for whatever reason, there's bait and there's fish in these shallower areas, these pockets. One thing we saw on the guides that I was riding with on Kerr Lake was, while you could be up in a creek arm, once you got into the coves themselves, there were not a lot of fish in there. They were pulled out further to at least where they had access to deeper water, because that's where the bait was. The bait's there for, whatever reason, whether it be temperature is part of it. It also has to do with what they're feeding on, and the magic combination was that deeper water. If you can find the bait, you can find the fish most of the time. So that's kind of something to keep in mind with what's going on. Now, this time of the year, the other thing to keep your eyes on is if we get a temperature spike like we're getting ready to have here in this area, the temperature is going to be firing up, going from highs in the 40s to highs in the upper 60s. Some of that shallower water that's getting good light penetration is going to heat up. And when that happens, some of those bait fish will move into those areas. Some of the, predator fish will move into there and start moving around, looking around more to see what's in there. It's a lot easier for them to ambush and kill something in shallow water because it has really nowhere to go than it is to kill it in 70, 80 feet of water. So there's an advantage to them being in there feeding. It's part of the reason when you get fish stacked up on points and stuff, water's pushing up shallower, there's less stuff for them to have to move through to ambush some of these fish. So my point is, keep an eye on what the weather's doing this time of the year. It's going to get, generally speaking, warmer and warmer. It's still going to be cold. It is still winter time, like I said earlier, but keep an eye on the weather. As we get out of February into March, we're getting more and more daylight, which means things are going to heat up more and more. And we're going to start to get some of those swings and those rises. There's still going to be cold days. That's the thing that can break your heart this time of the year, is that things go really good. It warms up for a little bit, and then poof, you get a cold front that comes through, and temperatures are back into the lower 20s, or you get snow, which is not out of the question in February and March. But those are kind of some things to keep in mind with what's going on with the fish. It's not prime time yet for fishing by any means. So if you're, deciding on whether to burn some of your vacation time to go fishing, now's not the best time to use that. With that said, if you got a chance to go fish, because some magic can happen. The Ice Bowl tournament this past week, if you subscribed to my channel, you saw the video that I put up, a short video there of 112-pound fish being caught. An amazing fish in the Ice Bowl tournament. Obviously, it won it. Now, with that said, I think second place was around 60-some pounds, so it fell off quickly. And there were a lot of fish in the 30s, and it fell off quickly from there, and there were people who didn't bring in any fish at all. So it may not be the best fishing around, but some stuff can happen. So if you got a chance, get out and go. But like I said, I wouldn't cash in any vacation time right now, trying to get out there and go fishing. If you're dying in an into fishing mood, but you can't go fishing because there's ice or anything else, think about the Catfish Conference. I'm going to do a podcast talking about that. The Catfish Conference is coming up in Louisville at the end of February. And you guys that are snowed in, iced in, too cold to fish, fishing's miserable, you don't want to go out in those conditions, you can at least get your fish game on by going to the Catfish Conference, Louisville, Kentucky. It's a great show. Everybody from the catfish industry is going to be there. So you can lay your hands on a lot of the stuff that I use, some of the stuff that I don't use that I talk about. These Catch the Fever rods over here. Catch the Fever will have a huge setup and display there. And the folks from Catfish who are here on my hat, they have all their clothing stuff and some of the gadgets they have. The cutting boards they make are really cool. Every rod company around will be there. Lots of tackle, that kind of stuff. Anchors. It's a great place to buy anything that is going to cost you a fortune to get shipped to you, like fishing rods, anchors, the Never Lost anchor that I use. They will be there. They'll have a booth set up. So something for you to do who maybe snowed in, iced in, just in not the best fishing conditions right now. And hey, listen, some people just don't want to go fishing when it's this cold, and I understand that. So that's kind of a little winter break that you can get out there and check out some stuff fishing. But again, if you got a chance to go fishing, go. The magic can happen at any time, and depending on what the conditions are and the cycle of what's going on with what you're going, or what's going on where you're at, you can find some fish and you can catch them. So, bait-wise, can be kind of a tough deal, especially for bank fishermen this time of year. A lot of times, the shad, if you're trying to catch shad, gizzard shad, threadfin, a lot of times those fish are a lot deeper. So you run into some issues there with having to use a tape net or something like that to get down to them. And let's face it, throwing a cast net in cold weather is not only not fun, it can be dangerous if it's below freezing, especially if you're in a boat or if you're trying to do it from a dock. Probably the best time in the world to throw a cast net is when in freezing weather is when you're on the bank, because you don't have to worry about slipping. Boats can get real dangerous. So that can be tough with bait. You can go with some of the alternative baits, as I call it. Chicken still works in the wintertime. Just for those who have watched my channel know that I use it. I use it continuously. I use it year round. It produces fish. Just plain chicken breast will work just fine. If you can get shad, if you can get skipjack, any of those baits will work. It can be a little tougher getting access to them, especially cast netting fish. But some of the warm water discharges, if you have nuclear plants or coal-fired plants on the lakes that you're fishing, good places to find the skipjack, find the shad, maybe a little bit shallower. But if you can buy bait where you're at, it's a good time to pad the pocket of your local bait man. And this is when they earn their money this time of year, by keeping those bait tanks full so that you don't have to go out and catch it. So as far as depths of water, it's like I said earlier, it can vary greatly. Generally speaking, fish are going to be deeper. And I'm not talking the deepest part of the lake. I'm talking deeper water than right up on the bank in the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 feet of water. That's kind of a general rule of thumb. As far as time of day, I'm going to be honest with you, night fishing, if you want to do it, great, good luck, have fun. If it's the only time you can go. But generally speaking, you're going to catch more fish during the day. Fish are more active during daylight hours in the wintertime. And, you know, if it's the only time you got to go is at night, that's fine, go. But just remember, be careful for one, because generally there's nobody out there. If you have an issue, a boat failure, you go into the water, there's nobody around to help you like there is in the summer. And the other thing is, it's cold. So it's colder at night when there's no sun on you than there is during the day when you got a little bit of light on you. So if you got a choice, fish during the day. And honestly, a lot of times fishing on up in the middle of the day, don't think you have to be out there right at daylight. There are some days where that early fishing works. And, you know, my guide trips, if that's what's working, we're going to be out there at daylight. But a lot of times you can get out there later in the day and catch fish. So don't get locked into that as much. So, you know, get out there, spend some time on the water if you can. If not, sit back by the fire, watch some of the videos, listen to some of the podcasts on fishing, maybe go to the Catfish conference and enjoy yourself out there, and keep your powder dry for when it warms up. So hopefully that gives you a little something to think about here on what's going on fishing and in the catfish world right now. And until next time, we'll catch you out on the water. Well, folks, if you made it this far, thank you for watching. Here are a couple more videos that I think you're going to like. I'd watch that one and then that one. No, do that one first and then that one. I don't know. Just watch them both. They're both good.